I wear my sunglasses at night so I can. Something in my eyes. I wear my sunglasses at night so I can.
I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
I wear my sunglasses at night so I can. What is going on, guys? I am back from the mountains, and it is so good to be live again, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed the videos that I created for my absence. I know many people were probably asking, were you going to cover the AOC thing? Yeah, I already uploaded a video for that. So I hope you guys got a chance to see those exclusive clips. But we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Tuesday to everyone and welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. It feels good to be back. Feels good to be back, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's theme is money matters because it does. It doesn't matter who you are, but money does matter. And we will get into all of that. First and foremost, I do want to give shout outs to people in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, the sunglasses song is stuck in my head. I heard it earlier today. Every now and then I listen to the radio. What's up, Scott? Says Corey Hart. Yeah. I wonder what happened to him. Shout out to Ahmed says, hello. Greetings. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but greetings. Respect. Shout out to Jose, sends eyes. Greetings, Blockbuster says hi. Greetings, Ophelia says awesome lineup, Sabby, grabbing my popcorn. Shout out to Mr. Ebby, says the death of MJW was beyond shocking. Yeah, This is one I can't just give a shout out to. I actually have to talk about this. We were going to have a story about it because the Malcolm Jamal Warner thing really hit me differently. And I'll explain why. And then I just found out Ozzy Osbourne also died. So, there's a lot happening, folks. Greetings, CBC voter says happy Tuesday, Sabby Sabs and Eric T. Red. Shout out to Mr. Moto. I am Mr. Moto Soso. I come from a land far away and long ago with muscle cars and topless bars. I used to cruise the strip, smoking old school spliff. What's up? Greetings, all one same said. What a week it's been, and it's just Tuesday. Make it a great day, everyone. Yes, indeed. Shout out to Socrates says, R.I.P. Theo. I know, you guys, I know. Oh, greetings. Army J says Whitney Webb deserves a medal. She should be Attorney General. There you go. Shout out to Kit Cabello in the house from Hardlands Media. What's going on? Hannah says, Theo, I know, guys. Yeah, this one was rough. Greetings, Nikki says, hashtag free Laith Maroof. Shout out to Salma says, Ayatollah is Arabic and also Jewish biblical Hebrew word. It means sign of God, birth of Christ, is Ayatollah in Christianity. Isaiah 7:14, Sabbat is Ayatollah, free Palestine. Greetings, Mark says Sabby. Shout out to JC says, jumping on to Sabby's show after JB. Hello all. Greetings, Kay says Sabrina thumbs up. Thank you for the super chat. JJ says, RIP Malcolm Jamal Warner. I know, man. Oh my gosh. What's up? Anthony says, shit, what did Whitney do this time? Oh, you'll see. This is a good one. And greetings, QB Socialista says, RIP Malcolm and Ozzy. Tough week, guys. Tough week. Greetings, Just Me said, hey, Sabby, we missed you. I missed you guys too. And shout out to Melanie says 80s banger. All right. I would love to say hello to everyone, but we got to get started. We got to get the show going. Again, the theme tonight is Money Matters. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. If you're a Sabby patron, what is up? Hello. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories. Ultimate. They're Sabinators. Don't forget about the Sabsters. They're doing the damn thing. And we also have a crew over here called Sabbies. Yeah, they're cool. They're so cool. And of course, we have the people really holding down the fort here, and that would be the members. All of their names are listed here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. I want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for AS and Hala Hamid Sabek. Thank you and welcome. Welcome. It's like welcome Carter. Welcome back. I don't know if everybody in the chat knows what Welcome Carter is, but it was a show. It was a show. I used to watch it on, there was a channel called TV Land. I don't know if that still exists or not because I haven't had cable in a long time, but there was a channel called TV Land and my mom used to watch like that show Welcome Back Carter on like TV Land along with many others. I thought the theme song was kind of cool. Welcome back. That really makes a show, right? The theme song. Doesn't that matter? Yeah. Come on. I mean, think about it. Everybody kind of knows the theme song from Friends or a theme song from Living Single. A theme song really does make you stand out. So if you have a bad theme song, I don't know. That might hurt the show. Might help the show. Mr. says Vinny Barbarino. Yeah. Fire says welcome back. That's right. Okay. I know, John. John says, you too young, Sabby, to know about Welcome Back, Carter. I know. I got to see a lot of these older shows because of TV Land and also Nick at Night, which is embarrassing to admit now. When I was a kid, Nick at Night was like, hey, Mr. Ed, that show called Mr. Ed, Leave It to Beaver, Lassie. There was a show where the woman, she had a twin cousin. No. What was the show? It was a woman and she had a cousin, but they looked alike. But they're cousins, identical cousins. They walk alike, they talk alike. Yes, I knew somebody knew. Skylar, the Patty Duke show. Thank you. I couldn't remember. Yeah, and Patty Duke played both parts. So yeah, that's an interesting story, by the way. Actress Patty Duke, she has one hell of a life story. You should look into that one. I think her son is the guy that played Rudy. Remember the movie Rudy, Sean Austin? I think that's her son. He was also a Hobbit in Lord of the Rings. Anyway, let's get started with the show. There's so much when you go back into old Hollywood. Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah. Patty Duke and Sean Austin. That's what I thought. Yeah. And My Three Sons. See, some of you are watching Nick at Night. You know what's up. The embarrassing part is now Nick at Night is like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And that's embarrassing for me because I'm just like, why is Fresh Prince of Bel-Air on Nick at Night? Like, why is Full House on Nick at Night? Come on. It wasn't that long ago, was it? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have a banger show for you tonight. Let's go ahead and share that beautiful thumbnail here, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Ed was about a horse. It was a horse that talked, but apparently I think the horse only talked to Wilbur or something like that. I don't know who came up with these shows. Anywho, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have quite a bit to discuss. We are discussing Whitney Webb drops a bombshell. Now, you guys know I told you Whitney Webb is on maternity leave, but she made an announcement that she was going to be releasing more information, and she has already done that. So we're going to get into that. We're also going to discuss Tulsi Gabbard is going after Barack Obama, honey. We have so much to get into. There's two sides to this. It's so funny. People are like, oh, you mean Barack Obama could be corrupt? Yeah, there's that side too. And it's also, this kind of don't take away you not releasing Epstein files. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, okay, we get it. Obama's corrupt. Many of us knew that anyway. But we ain't forget about the Epstein files. And that's my case on this. We'll get into all of that. We're also going to discuss, this is a big story, ladies and gentlemen, and even a lot of corporate media outlets are starting to discuss this more now. The Gaza starvation crisis, this is a serious, it should be human rights alert. The UN, I believe, should be sending a very strong message here. Like it's absolutely crazy. We're going to talk about that and the Handala that is on its way to Gaza to deliver food and aid. We'll get into that all together. We're also going to discuss, and this one really broke me, you guys, Malcolm Jamal Warner dies. And I did not think I would hear that announcement. We're going to get into that and what it meant for Malcolm Jamal Warner. You're also going to see a video. What they are saying was his final video before he passed away. So we'll get into that as well. And last but not least, this is a big one. Gen Z and millennials out of reach. That out of reach report is ready for 2025. And we're combining that with this new report that came out about Gen Z and millennials. Again, the theme tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is money matters. If you have not done so, can you do me a favor, do me a solid and smash the like. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share just like a Care Bear. And we're keeping it going. Let's go ahead and dive into this very first story here, ladies and gentlemen. Fortune published an article about the Gen Z and millennial crisis that is happening, economic crisis. And if you're not a Gen Z or a millennial, you may think that this isn't going to impact you, but it will because it is impacting the economy as a whole. We are connecting this with a new out of reach report so that you can see where you stand in your state and you can see what you should be making versus what you're currently making. And that's just to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. To no surprise to all of you, I'm sure you probably imagine the prices have increased since I covered the report from 2024. So yes, you do need to earn more now than in 2024. And that goes along with this story that just came in. This is a big one. Gen Z and millennials can't afford to buy a house, and it shows the number of first-time home buyers is half the historical norm. This is, I would say, sending 2008 alarm bells and it doesn't seem to be going away. So listen to this. The American dream is on life support for first-time home buyers. New data shows, and the landscape will remain pretty bleak for a while. Young adults are staying with parents to save money or opting to house swap with a baby boomer relative to eke out a start in the housing market. So let me dive in here for just a second. I was one of those people that had to do that. Like I am a millennial. I'm an older millennial. To see the generation behind me, Gen Z, have to go through this as well, it is unfortunate. When I graduated from undergrad, I had to live with my parents for a year to save money while I was working because the salaries that were being offered at that point in time were not enough for me to afford my own apartment, let alone a roommate. And that was in Columbia, South Carolina. So you have to remember, some of us have student loans to pay too. So it's not just, you're not just paying for rent, you're not just paying for a car payment, car insurance, but you're also having to pay back those student loans. So that's another one. Then to go on top of that, I think people also have to realize that there were many of us that, we weren't driving brand new cars. Like I've never had a new car in my life. Every car that I've owned has been a used car. And I never expected that type of struggle after going to college. I didn't go to college to struggle. I went to college because I did want to be successful. I wanted to do well financially and hopefully establish generational wealth. That was the goal. And now we see the generation coming behind me is running into a similar problem that I ran into, but it looks like it's going to be worse for them. It's a dog eat dog world in today's housing market. Mortgage rates are still hovering near 7%, and Americans need to make six figures in order to afford a median price home, which is currently more than $422,000. So you need to make six figures. One of the things I'm going to give you a heads up about with the documentary that I'm doing, something that I found out while doing this documentary. A lot of people say, well, just try to live in an affordable housing complex. First of all, it's really hard to get into those apartment units, those affordable housing units. And I also just found out, which you will see this in the documentary, which is that in Boston in particular, you have to have a minimum income of $100,000 a year just to qualify. A lot of people don't know that. Affordable housing here, at least in Boston, isn't actually affordable. See, that's the shocker. That's what people need to understand. And a lot of us, when we graduated from undergrad, we're not making $100,000. So just keep that in mind, right? So that was a spoiler alert there. Those factors have gate-kept the housing market for many first-time home buyers who are typically younger generations like Gen Z and millennials. In fact, the housing market has become so unaffordable for these buyers. The number of first-time home buyers shrank to a historic low. A historic low. Look at it. Estimated number of first-time home buyers since 1995. I'll make this a little bit smaller so we can see the chart a little bit better. Here, look at this. That's where we are. This is where we are now. And we can see it has had its ups and downs. The highest, 2005. Then we all know that 2008 housing crisis really screwed over a lot of things. And I wanted to show you this graph because I do want to prove a point. As I predicted, we have still not fully recovered from the housing crisis in 2008. And this graph shows you just that. Look at it. 2008 right here. You can see some increase 2010 goes back down. Increase 2013 goes back down. And that's what it's been, just up and down, and now we're at the bottom. We're at the bottom here. It has not been this high since 2005. We had over 3.3 million first-time home buyers. Haven't seen that since 2005. It is now 2025. Now, why am I showing you this? Because yes, it is very difficult for millennials, but like I said, more so nowadays, Gen Z, very difficult. But all in all, you are going to see just how bad it is for kind of everybody. Because that Low Income Housing Coalition released their 2025 report, and I want you to take a look at these numbers. We'll compare them to last year's as well. This is the map. The dark blue states are the states that you need to earn the most to be able to afford just a 2-bedroom apartment, right? So as the blues get lighter, you don't need to earn as much. We'll go ahead and just look at California, for example, because I knew this would be number one, just like it was last year. This has increased from last year. Now it is reported that you have to make $49.61 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental in California. If you are making minimum wage, you would need to work 120 hours a week. California is the top state with the highest housing wage. Now, I say this because of a reason. I'll be very clear about something. This whole fight for 15 doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything anymore. This is why I keep telling people we have to stop with the fight for 15. Fight for 15 is years old. And as you'll see, none of these states, $15 a get. No, that is long gone, honey bun. Long gone. And that's why I continue to say we need to be fighting for a living wage. Stop it with we need to increase the minimum wage to such and such. No, we need a living wage for people in this country. That's just California. Now, a lot of you are probably going to think it's just the blue states. So we're going to throw in a couple of maybe surprises here, like Florida. Florida also increased from last year. Florida is 9th. They're in the top 10. Highest housing wage. In Florida, you would need to make $37.27 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental. If you make minimum wage, you have to work 115 hours a week. You know why I'm pointing out Florida? Because over the years since I've covered this report, I've watched Florida continue to increase. You know why it's increasing? Because people are moving there. This is why I continue to say the way to solve this is not to tell people that you need to move to a cheaper state, right? Like, obviously, yes, that's going to be easier for you as an individual. And a lot of people do that. A lot of people in California, New York, etc., they'll move south to the states that are cheaper. But what I had tried to warn people is that over time, those cheaper states won't be so cheap anymore because you have a supply and demand issue. When you have an influx of people that are coming in, the demand is going to increase, so they increase the prices. It's been happening all around. Been happening all around, folks. That was Florida. We're going to take a look at a couple other ones, okay? We got to do it, and I'm sorry for my peeps in New York, but you know we got to go here. New York is 3rd highest housing wage. In New York, you need to make $46.03 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental. You would have to work 119 hours a week if you were paid minimum wage. Now, New York is high because of New York City. You take New York City away, upstate New York isn't as expensive, right? That's New York. Let's go to my state, Massachusetts, 4th. That means that someone knocked us out because we were in the top 3 last year, but it's still expensive as fuck here. 4th highest housing wage. You would need to earn $45.90 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom. You'd have to work 122 hours a week if you made minimum wage. Let's go on. Here's another one. Virginia's 14th. Part of that has to do with DC. Sorry, gonna have to keep it real. $33.64 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental. Let's go on. Let's throw in a doozy. Arizona 13th. Arizona's a purple? Are we calling Arizona purple state now? Or is it still red? What is Arizona? Whatever you want to call it. 13th. They're in the top 20. Highest housing wage, 13th. You need to make $34.18 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental in Arizona. If you make minimum wage, you have to work 93 hours a week. Sorry, that hovered over New Mexico. Texas is also increasing. Texas is ranked 22nd highest housing wage. You need to make $29.64 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom in Texas. You need to work 164 hours a week if you make minimum wage. Let's go to Colorado. Colorado is 10th, $36.79 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental, 99 hours a week if you make minimum wage. We're going to throw in some doozies. Maryland, we did Virginia already. Trying to get away from you, Virginia. That's Pennsylvania. Maryland. I know a lot of people that live in that area. Maryland is 8th, highest housing wage, $39.15 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom, 104 hours a week. Again, a lot of that has to do with DC. 104 hours a week if you make minimum wage. New Jersey is 7th, $39.99 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental. If you make minimum wage, you'll have to work 103 hours a week. Connecticut's another one we need to look at because that one kind of, tries to skate by. And Connecticut is expensive too because of New York also. 11th, $35.42 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental. You'll have to work 87 hours a week if you make minimum wage. Now, the West Coast, it's not just California. Washington State is ranked 6th. You can see it here, $41.11 an hour. Let's go to Oregon. Oregon is ranked 15th, $33.02 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental. Let's continue on. Let's go down here because you know who we're forgetting? Hawaii. Hawaii is 2nd most expensive, highest housing wage. In Hawaii, you would need to make $49.19 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental. If you are working your paid minimum wage, you'll have to work 141 hours a week. Now, let's pause here for a second. I think you're noticing a trend, right? The income requirement has continued to increase over the years since I've been covering this. You'll also notice some of these southern states, and we'll get to Georgia as well, some of these southern states are not out of the water either. I already showed you Florida. Let's look at Georgia. Georgia's 23rd highest housing wage. You'll need to make $29.46 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental. If you are making minimum wage, you'll have to work 163 hours a week. I want to take a peek at North Carolina. This is another one you need to keep an eye on. North Carolina is ranked 30th, highest housing wage, $27.14 to afford a 2-bedroom. And then there was another one that I wanted to point to. Let me see. It's Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is 28th. This is important to call out Pennsylvania, right? Highest housing wage, they rank 28th. You need to make $27.83 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom. Do you know why I'm pointing out Pennsylvania? That's one of the states that still doesn't have $15 an hour. I believe Pennsylvania, last time I checked, was still $7.25 an hour for minimum wage. So this shouldn't happen in the land of dreams, right? Isn't this where people come from, land of dreams? At the end of the day, Puerto Rico is last. Puerto Rico has a housing wage of, they're ranked 52nd, excuse me. You need to make $11.64 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom in Puerto Rico. But then comes that question, how many jobs in Puerto Rico? What happens with a place like Hawaii, right? Where the weather is always nice and it's so beautiful, but how many jobs do they have there, right? Hawaii has always been expensive as long as I can remember. But you are noticing that some of these places that were really cheap are no longer as cheap as they used to be. This is the reality in the United States right now. For those who are just joining, this is the Out of Reach report. This report is released every year, and every year that I've covered it, the requirements continue to increase for all of these states. That's why the fight for 15 is ridiculous, in my opinion. Now, I want to show you something else. This is important as well, because you see, what people may not realize is that even though I gave you those numbers, that is for the state as a whole. But the numbers actually increase when you're looking at the metropolitan area. Because if you look here, California, and I thought this was really interesting. In California, when you look at the metropolitan areas, and I'm sorry if you guys can't see, I'll read it for you. The requirement increases. Santa Cruz area, these are the most expensive areas in California. Santa Cruz, you would need to make $81.21 an hour. You feel me? So the numbers that you see on that map, that is for the entire state. But once you look at the metropolitan areas, it increases even more. Who do you know that is making $81 an hour? That's just for Santa Cruz. That's not Los Angeles. That's Santa Cruz. San Jose, $66. San Francisco, $63. Santa Maria, $58. Salinas, $57. Everybody see what's happening here? Now I want to show you something else. That's this year. If we go back to last year, and I think this is important as well, you'll see that once again, even in those metropolitan areas, that also increased. Last year, Santa Cruz was $77. San Francisco was $64. San Jose was $60. Santa Maria was $57. Salinas was $55. The point is, I'm willing to bet you most of the people who live in these areas are not making that. And this is part of the reason why people in California can't buy a home, but it's not just California. So this whole fight for 15, that is so yesterday, man. That's yesterday. No more preaching about a fight for 15. Preach about a living wage. Because how can you, with $15 minimum wage, what are you supposed to do? Now, some people will come in and they will say, well, those minimum wage jobs were not meant for adults. They were meant for teenagers to work those jobs. Okay. So who is going to work those jobs when teenagers are in school? Who do you think is working at McDonald's, Burger King, Bed Bath & Beyond, if they still exist out there somewhere, Walmart, Target? Who do you think is working those jobs when kids are in school during the day? A lot of times, those are middle-aged women. The average middle-aged woman in this country is working retail or they're working at a restaurant. I know. I worked retail. All of my managers were in that category. So the whole idea that minimum wage jobs are only for teenagers doesn't make any damn sense. During the summer, I get it. But during the school year, somebody has to work those jobs throughout the day. The kids can't miss school. I don't know why people tried to pretend as though this wasn't happening all along. It was happening. So if you didn't know, now you know. When I worked at clothing stores, our managers weren't really making much. A lot of times, next time you go to a retail store, look around. Look and see who's working those jobs during the day. A lot of times it's middle-aged women, and they're not making much either. That's the average American. The average American isn't working a 9-to-5 job where they're making six figures. Take a look at another one. We talked about those metropolitan areas. So for my peeps in the DC area, I'm sorry to put you on blast, but you know I had to do it, right? We got to do it. When you look at DC, for example, Washington, that includes DC, Arlington, and Alexandria, Virginia, you need to make $44.50 an hour. The people that you see that are making your Starbucks latte or whatever it's called these days, the people that you see working at the drive-through that you go through, these people are not making that. A lot of them not even making $15 an hour. DC is a good one to look at, right? Another one that I want to take a look at. Let's go back to Florida. Let's go back to a red state. Again, you will see that once you get to the metropolitan areas, it increases. Now, I don't know what the hell is going on in Fort Lauderdale, but apparently in Fort Lauderdale, it's more expensive there than it is in Miami. In Fort Lauderdale, Florida, you need to make $45.92 to afford a 2-bedroom. In Miami, $44.79. Monroe County, 43. West Palm Beach, 42. Tampa, Petersburg, Clearwater, 38. So think about that. That's Florida. So I think that people really got to take a look at this, man, because the reality is we are not heading where we should. Massachusetts, same thing. We're not going to go through all of them, but I just want to show you a couple examples that you'll see here. The most expensive areas. Now, Massachusetts, the state said you need to make like 40 something dollars an hour, right? But when you go to the most expensive, these expensive areas, Nantucket County, you need to make $54 an hour. Boston, Cambridge, and Quincy, $54 an hour. That's really the living wage. It's not $15. It's not 20. It's not 25. So when we think about the fact that we have millennials and Gen Z that can't afford to buy a home, I just want you to realize some of these people that you see working at the stores, at the retail stores, at the restaurants, a lot of them can't afford to buy one either. Some of them can barely afford rent. And this is why nowadays, especially in this area, this is why you see people in their late 30s and even in their 40s with roommates. This is not the way that the American dream is. That's not a dream. That's a nightmare. And it's continued to get worse over time. So I know sometimes, like a parents, grandparents may say, you guys need to take responsibility. Yeah, I get all that. But at some point, you have to look at the system and realize that we have a problem. And if this doesn't get resolved anytime soon, we're screwed. That does hurt the economy. If people aren't buying homes, that hurts the economy. If people aren't putting money into the economy, that hurts the economy. That's how it works. And if those people can't afford those 2-bedroom apartments or even a 1-bedroom apartment, and they have to have 3 and 4 roommates, then not only are they not going to be able to afford a home, but that also goes to show you they're probably not able to save any money either. Money matters. And I want people to think about that. And I hope people don't take this the wrong way. This is not to offend anybody who grew up privileged. I did not, or anybody who grew up wealthy. But I got to make this point here. Money does matter. And when you have money, when you're born with money, when you're born into a family that has money, things are going to be a little bit easier for you financially. And depending on how much money they have, things are going to be a lot easier for you financially. For the kids of the parents that are working those retail jobs, those restaurant jobs, the service industry jobs, things are going to be a lot harder for them. Whether they go to college or not. If they go to college, they may get somewhat of a scholarship, and colleges are even sketchy on that nowadays, unless it's an athletic scholarship for the most part, to be honest with you. They're going to have student loans. The problem is, ladies and gentlemen, this disaster that is happening, it prevents people from establishing generational wealth. And if you can't establish generational wealth, your net worth is going to be very low or in the negative. You have nothing to pass on. And these kids shouldn't have to sit around and wait and hope that their parents give their house to them. And that's kind of what it's coming to for a lot of people. As if their parents have a house. And if you don't, then you have nothing to pass on. That is not the American dream. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, Kate. Obama could have saved the homeowners as well as the banks. Could have, huh? Could have. Let's go to some of the comments over here as well. Kat said, my local fast food won't pay more than $10 an hour. Georgia is a joke. Yeah. I think the problem is too, to Kat's point, I think a lot of people assume that Atlanta is Georgia. And the reality is, like, no, Atlanta is Atlanta, and the rest of Georgia is not like that. And even in Atlanta, people are having difficulty finding jobs. I had Torrin Walker and Marcus Farrell came on to talk about that. And they said, no, no, don't move here. They said, ain't no jobs here. Thank you, Miss Ritchie. What makes DC Metro in Virginia unbearable is you have to drive everywhere. That adds a lot to cost of living compared to places with good mass transit. Yeah, it's true. I mean, DC has transit, but it's not everywhere that it needs to be, and it's not, it's not like New York. It's not reliable. Thank you, Demi. Hubby and I make 80K and live in income controlled housing in California. Had plans to move out of state. Your out of reach report last year gave me food for thought. Simply moving to more affordable states is not the solution. Yeah, it's hard. It's tough because that is the gut reaction. I need to move somewhere cheaper. When I went to high school in North Carolina, there are a lot of my friends, like their parents, like they were from New York. There was a lot of New Yorkers that had moved to North Carolina. And I get it because it's cheaper. But at the end of the day, what's going to happen is when you have that influx come in, you're going to have to know that it's going to cause the cost of living in that state to increase too. That's how it happens. Thank you, Marcus. Did I miss the memorial to Zionist and genocide supporter Ozzy Osbourne? No memorial. We didn't do a memorial for Ozzy. I didn't know Ozzy Osbourne has become a Zionist too now. Jesus Christ. Thank you. Where's the love? We have to stop the fake it till we make it or keeping up with the Jones mentality. Keep it real, folks. We got to wake up. Yeah. And this is why, and you guys wonder why some people were like, I'm going to be a minimalist. Some people are doing it because it was a fad, but some people are doing it because they're broke, you know? Thank you, Marvin. They don't want you to own, just rent and slave you in debt. Yeah. Thank you, Perry. Did you see the video of the black guy who was beaten to an inch of his life in Florida, sitting in his car, and the police chief then excused the barbarity of the officers? Yes, I'm going to talk about that on Thursday because there's more information coming out about that. So I am going to cover that on Thursday, but I saw it. Let's get the comment on Rockfin. Thank you. Hey, hey, hey. Thank you, Roger. 2005, when there was home ownership at its peak, was Generation X. That was right before we all lost our homes 3 years later. 5 for 15 was too little when it was first introduced in 2015 CBI to make minimum wage fair market rent and then peg it to fair market rent. Provide subsidies to mom and pop shops and startup worker co-ops and franchises to cover 85 to 100% available costs. Thank you for this, Roger. Also, we need a decommodification of housing and make it unconstitutional for private equity to operate anywhere in your state. Yeah, I covered that. I mentioned the private equity during my speech. You're right about that. The talk that I gave at the Community Church of Boston. And thank you for this one. Americans hold 21 trillion mortgage debt, 1.7 trillion student loan debt, 1.6 trillion auto loan debt, 1.3 trillion small business loan debt, and 1.1 trillion total credit card debt. 220 billion medical debt held by Americans. Yeah. And that's a big part of it, is like they just want you to be in debt, you know? Money matters. Money matters. All right, ladies and gentlemen, do me a favor. Smash the like if you haven't done so. Thank you very much. We are moving on to the next story here. This is a big one that we need to get into. So, look, the starvation crisis in Gaza is completely run amok. There were Gazans starving last year as well, where Israel was blocking the aid or they were destroying the aid. But we are at a point right now where this is a serious world catastrophe, even to the point where corporate media is even calling it out now and saying that something has to be done. And the world is seeing this happen. And recently, there was another attack at an aid distribution site, which Cindy McCain also was apparently there for and is going to discuss as well. We'll get to that clip in just a second. But this is what is happening, folks. Israeli troops killed dozens seeking food near border, Gazan officials say. So let's get into what happened at this recent aid distribution. Israeli forces killed and wounded dozens of Palestinians on Sunday in northern Gaza Strip as crowds gathered near a border crossing where the UN trucks were entering the enclave with humanitarian aid. A convoy of 25 trucks from the World Food Program, a UN agency, was crossing into Gaza and encountered large crowds of civilians anxiously waiting to access desperately needed food supplies. As the convoy approached, the surrounding crowd came under fire from Israeli tanks, snipers, and gunfire. Now, you guys know we covered this a while back that there were IDF soldiers that went on record saying that they were told to do that. They were told to kill Palestinians as they came to gather aid. So this is not something that Israel can continue to deny anymore when you have their own soldiers that have publicly said, this is what we were told to do. The episode was the latest in a string of episodes in which Gazans lost their lives as they gathered to get food. Hunger and desperation have gripped Palestinians in Gaza during Israel's nearly 2-year military campaign against Hamas, actually against the civilians. This latest attack took place near the Zikam crossing between the Gaza Strip and Israel. More than 60 people were killed, according to the health ministry, and Mohammed, the director of Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City, a field hospital operated by the Palestine Red Crescent Society in northern Gaza, was flooded with gunshot victims. So let's get into this video here from Cindy McCain as she discusses what she saw.
This is one of the worst tragedies we've seen so far in this particular war. What happened was we had clearance to go through the Zakim gate. We were through the gate. The Israelis had, as you know, they clear everything and they decide when and if you go in. And we began our trek down the road, and what we saw were thousands of people running towards us. And they were hungry, they're starving. And all of a sudden, the Israeli tanks, Israeli guns, Israeli weapons from all kinds started firing on the crowd. And it was just, it's something that I hope never happens again. But more importantly,
we'll pause right here for a second. This is Cindy McCain telling you what she witnessed, what she saw there. Guys, this is not, Gaza should not be a partisan issue. The genocide has happened under the Biden administration and under the Trump administration, and I call it a humanitarian issue. If you have any humanity inside of you at all, you should have a problem with this. Everyone needs to put their partisan shit aside. Because what is happening to like those kids, what's happening to the women, the children, it is absolutely disgusting. Disgusting. And I want to be very clear about something. What Israel's doing to Gaza, they can do to anybody else. You know why? Because they have the backing of the US government. Think about what Israel, and I've been thinking about this for a second. Think about what Israel would do to the United States if the US said, that's it, we're done with you. You don't think they wouldn't try to hurt us? These people are insane. Absolutely insane. And yes, they do have nuclear weapons. But this is what the United States wanted. This is who they called an ally. So everyone need to put their partisan stuff aside and call this out for what it is.
Our group, WP, our people that work for us were there too, and they were put in grave danger as a result of that. No humanitarian aid worker should ever be a target of anything.
Well, this follows a trend over the last 2 months where over 800 Palestinians have been killed around aid distribution sites. The majority of those are at the controversial US-backed and Israel-supported Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Can you be very specific? Are you coordinating in any way or supporting in any way that operational model? And what is your view on the GHF?
Well, we are not coordinating and we do not work with GHF. As you know, we're a UN agency. And so we have our UN, the way the UN operates is different from what GHF is doing. I don't really have any information about them at all because we don't even talk.
Yeah, that's Cindy McCain right there, right? Now we're talking about how money matters, and I want to make that point with Israel as well. Yeah, you know, we have politicians that won't do the right thing when it comes to this particular issue. Now, I already went on my rant about AOC and her foolishness for her opportunism. But the majority of Congress won't do the right thing because they're complicit, because they're donors. It's AIPAC, it's Kufi, it's the Israeli lobby. It's always about the money. If you make the connection, that's really what it's all about. It's just like Francesca Albanese when she released that information, that report that told you all the companies that were profiting off of the genocide in Gaza. That's absolutely disgusting. But they don't care. It's all about money, folks. They don't care that they're killing children. They don't care that they're starving people. They don't give a damn. They just want to sit back and make money. And if they're okay with doing that to them, don't ever put it aside that it couldn't happen to you. You don't know what's going to happen. I think a lot of times we get really comfortable living in the United States and we think that it could never be us. We don't know what the future holds for us. Because a lot of these countries have gotten very tired of the West and very tired of the US policing their country. You don't know what the future holds. So always keep that in mind. This little girl right here, this little girl, she just wants to eat. That's it. She just wants food. They are starving these people to death. Now, you really want to believe, because they want to make you believe that this is what the Bible wants. This is what the Bible says. This is what God wants. No. That biblical push, that message, when people need to read their own Bibles, that message that is being preached through Christianity is to excuse this. They want you to believe the same Jesus that is discussed throughout the Bible, who was open to everyone. They really want you to believe that he would be okay with this? Despite what you believe, whether you're religious or not, you really believe that. And for those of you who went to church, come on, think about it. Children. And if you have kids, you wouldn't want it to be your kid. And what's interesting about this is that you have Christine Amanpour. She is speaking to Antony Blinken. Now, she brings up this issue about the starvation in Gaza. Listen to what Antony Blinken says to her.
But I want to ask you this, because I interviewed you when you were getting that ceasefire back in January. It was the last day of administration, just about.
That's right.
And I asked you, is the second part of it sorted? You've got a first phase and a second phase. And you said no. And it's clear to all observers that eventually Benjamin Netanyahu broke the ceasefire. And that's what the New York Times reports. That's what everybody reports. And, you know, you say individual acts of cases that should be, investigated as war crimes. But you see others writing about, soldiers right now targeting and shooting to kill at people coming to get their food and basic necessities in that ridiculous thing that's been set up that doesn't work, in the name of the United States and Israel to give people food. You've seen deliberate targeting of children and women it's just unconscionable. So I need to ask you because it's
No,
super
but I'm going to help
important.
you.
Hold
I'll
on.
help you.
You don't need to help me. I want to ask
Okay.
Tony.
See what happens here? See how he tries to jump in to help Anthony Blinken? And why does he have to be sitting beside him anyway? Right? So Christine Amanpour, even her at this point in time is like, look, we got to call it like we see it. We see what's happening. This is why Israel wanted to shut down the media. This is why they were killing the journalists, because they don't want these crimes to get out. They don't want these crimes to get out. But it got out, and the world saw, and the world sees. I don't see how anybody can support Israel after this. I really don't. I don't see how. Because the fat cats in Congress told you to do so while they're filling their own pockets. They don't care about the people in Israel either. They just want to make money for themselves. Opportunists. This was what was so troubling about AOC's vote and her statement and her tripling down, because it's very obvious that she wants to be an opportunist too, that she's looking out for her career as well. She'll probably run for Senate, maybe later on even president. And she didn't want it on her record that she voted against this, giving the funding to the Iron Dome. All opportunists. So listen to what he says.
Because I want to get back to Matt Miller. Basically, he was pushed on what you might think, on the frustrations you might have had with Mr. Biden over Gaza and Ukraine policy. So Mr. Miller hinted that there were tensions. He said in his interview, "I'll probably wait and let the secretary speak for himself. But I will say, speaking generally, it's true about every senior official that they don't win every policy fight they enter into. And what you do is you make your best case to the president." He said that there were debates, and we know about the back channel or whatever, the channel for dissent in the State Department. People quit. People wrote about why they were upset. Whether and when to cut off weapons to Israel. You saw us in the spring of 2024 stop the 2,000 bomb shipments to Israel because we didn't believe they would use those in a way that was appropriate in Gaza. So that's your spokesman, who never gave a hint of this, and actually, I'm sure, kind of criticized my hardline reporting. So I want to know, what was there that kind of, did you have those frustrations? Could you have done more to stop what's now turned into, a slaughter?
Look, Christian, I think there's a larger dynamic that you have to take into account, because what were we trying to do? We were trying to get to, we were talking about this in the context of Iran. It's a very different situation, but in a sense, the same principle. We were trying to get to an enduring solution that ended the horrific suffering of people on all sides, and especially in all the days since October 7th.
This is a lie. Let me make something very clear. If they wanted to end the suffering, they could have ended it just like that. The way that they do that, stop giving Israel weapons, let the aid get to the people. It's really that simple. This is the same lie that he was peddling under the Biden administration, right? So you see, these people are paid liars, and some of them paid actors. This is their job. This is what they do to try to convince people that, well, we tried to. No, they did not try. The report was announced earlier this year. They never asked for a ceasefire. Never. Which some of us tried to tell you last year. It's all a game. There is no we try. Look back at history and you can see it for yourself. Ronald Reagan, when he had enough of Israel bombing Lebanon, he picked up the phone and said, "Stop. Israel's losing support." That's all it takes. There is no you try. You pick up the phone and you stop it. Antony Blinken is just as much a part of this. Antony Blinken co-signed everything that you see happening right now. Antony Blinken, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, they all co-signed it. What did I tell you? If the Democratic Party didn't do the right thing, what made you think the next administration coming in was going to do the right thing? When the Democrats, who claim they're the party of the people and that they care about humanity and suffering and that they have empathy, if they are willing to allow the genocide to happen, what on earth would make you think the next administration coming in would do the opposite? They paved the way.
Palestinians in Gaza, men, women, and children who didn't start the conflict and were powerless to end it and were suffering because of it grievously. From day one, we insisted that the Israelis provide humanitarian assistance or allow humanitarian assistance to get to people who needed it. That was, as you know, an ongoing struggle, an ongoing debate. But every day of while we were in office, we pushed that, we pressed that. I don't believe there was any point at which there was a full embargo on that assistance, largely because we insisted that it go forward. Not very
And that
imperfectly.
happened under Trump. There was such an embargo.
So
do you see how this guy comes in to assist and to help? Listen, Butch Ware said the Democratic Party is dead. He said the Democratic Party was dead after this. And I believe it. Now, however, there are some that are out there trying to do the right thing. And one of those people just happens to be someone I think all of you like very much. And that is Chris Smalls, Amazon union organizer Chris Smalls. He is on the Handala on his way to Gaza now.
For 20 months straight, cargo ships were sent to Israel every 15 hours. These unions continue to ship these arms, and that is facilitated by some of the largest unions coming from the U.S. Labor leaders have been complicit, if not more than that, participate by
This is why, let me go back, because I got to say something about the unions.
arms, and that is facilitated by some of the largest unions coming from the U.S. Labor leaders have been complicit, if not more than that, participate by continuing to ship arms to Israel or haven't passed any resolutions. Amazon in particular has invested $7.2 billion into the Nimbus project, which is directly intelligence that is used to surveil and target innocent civilians of Palestine. So
Pause here for a second. This is why I said what I said about the unions. I said unions are a great first step, but at the end, I feel like the end game should be worker cooperatives. Because, and this is what I was telling Shama Sawant when she was on last time too, unions have been known to get corrupted. So Chris Smalls just told you that you have unions that are participating in this as well. Important for people to know.
they are not more than complicit, they are actively participating. People have to understand that unions have a responsibility to protect, to be the shield for the working class, and that doesn't exclude the Palestinian people. I want to explain to people, an injury to one is an injury to all. The people of Palestine are involved in trade unions. I've been blessed to meet many of the trade unionists. I've been blessed to have been in conversations in company with some of the presidents of these trade unions. Palestine is absolutely a trade union country. And so as a fellow brother of the trade union movement, there's no way that I can sit back on the sidelines and continue to watch this massacre take place every day. I hope to inspire more labor leaders around the world. I'm hoping that unions are watching right now. They're taking note, taking heed to take more of an initiative to pass resolutions to stop shipping arms to Israel.
Chris Smalls. He is one of 7 Americans that is on the Handala right now. And it makes me very happy because Chris Smalls didn't have to do this. Chris Smalls could have just rode into the sunset after his union, victory at the Amazon warehouse in Staten Island. He didn't have to continue to do any activism. He could have sat back and just wrote a bunch of books and maybe started a podcast and all these types of things. But look at what he's doing. Now, on Wednesday, Chris Smalls announced this as well. Tomorrow, join us live from All the Eyes of Handala with U.S. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. 7 Americans on board. Yeah, there's 7 of them, guys. So live stream from the Freedom Flotilla with Rashida Tlaib. Join a live stream discussion between Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and some of the U.S. citizens aboard the Freedom Flotilla. That is at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Palestine time. That is Chris Smalls out there doing the damn thing. You got to take the wins, like these types of wins, right? Like people who are willing to risk. They're risking a lot going out there. So shout out to that. And that's what gives me hope. That's what gives me hope. People like Chris, like the activists, the people who are like, no, forget this. We're going to go out there and fight anyway. That's what gives me the hope. Not politicians. I'm not standing by. This is why I wasn't, and this is another thing. This is why I wasn't disappointed or surprised by AOC's vote. This is why, because it just, I'm like, okay, so we here again. So don't put your faith and hope in these politicians. Again, the hero that you want is the person that you see in the mirror. It is going to be you and people within your community. That's going to be the hero. But I say that money matters. And I say it because if it's not for the money, this wouldn't be happening. Let's go to some of the comments, ladies and gentlemen. Katya says Chris Smalls is amazing. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. James said Blinken is a straight up demon. Yep. Thank you, Sean. Obama corrupt ? He did say he ruled like a Republican after all. Warmonger. And thank you, Jay. Did you see the Eastman Credit Union video? I have not. I'll have to look into that. Another thing I got to check out. Let's get the comment on Rumble, the Rumble rant. Thank you, Goo81. Well, Ozzy's wife is, as she asked to kneecap, canceled for saying F you know and free you know in a concert while her husband became famous for biting the head off a bat. That is interesting. And thank you for this one. Chris Smalls and the other people on the Hondola should be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Did you hear about their water on the Hondola being poisoned and ropes tied up to a propeller to sabotage them? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm trying to tell you guys, like, Israel is it's not just disgusting, it's just so evil and vindictive. And I got to tell you, I've seen some things in my life, but it's disgusting. Disgusting. All right. I think we are moving on to the next story, ladies and gentlemen. And this one is a doozy. Doozy, woozy, woozy. Here we go. Tulsi Gabbard has decided to come forward and she is trying to prosecute Barack Obama. Apparently, Tulsi Gabbard is telling you that Barack Obama is corrupt. Imagine that. Now, what's interesting about this story is not that she's saying that Barack Obama tried to sabotage Donald Trump in the 2016 presidential election. None of this is surprising to me. Barack Obama was also the one that said he was going to stay out of the 2020, election and kind of keep things to himself and not give an opinion one way or another. And then, of course, he was the one that picked up the phone to tell people to drop out of the race to help Joe Biden. So, I mean, yeah, this is the same guy who stood in front of a room of people in Flint, Michigan and pretended to drink the water and told them the water was safe and the water was not safe. Yeah, so surprise, Barack Obama is corrupt. Something we already knew. But this story that Tulsi is bringing forward, I got to say this, folks. We'll get into it. But I got to say this. Don't let this distract you from the fact that they haven't released those Epstein files. Don't let this distract you from that, okay? And I saw, the Martin Luther King files have been released, etc. That's nice. Don't let this distract you from the fact that they have released the Epstein files. But let's get into this. Let's see what Tulsi is talking about. What did Obama do?
And we begin this Sunday morning with the biggest political scandal of all. collusion and conspiracy at the highest levels against President Trump. Now, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard revealing what this audience has known all along. A cabal of high-ranking officials led by then-President Barack Obama, CIA Director John Brennan, and Hillary Clinton, among others, took the world on a wild goose chase to try and take down their political enemy, Donald Trump, no matter the casualties along the way. DNA Tulsi Gabbard is now calling for prosecutions, revealing declassified documents from the Russia collusion made-up investigation, which she says detail a treasonous conspiracy by officials at the highest level of the Obama White House to stop incoming President Donald Trump. The cabal included Barack Obama, John Brennan, James Clapper, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Jim Comey, and Susan Rice, who pushed a made-up story that President Trump colluded with Russia to win the 2016 election, so the cabal would not lose their grip on power. All of this exactly as then Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes, Judiciary Committee member John Ratcliffe, and President Trump himself told us so many times from day one.
What that is it's the original intelligence, the original reasons that the counterintelligence investigation was started. Now, this is really important to us because a counterintelligence investigation uses the tools of our intelligence services that are not supposed to be used on American citizens. So we've long wanted to know, well, what intelligence did you have that actually led to this investigation? So what we found now, after the investigators have reviewed it, is that, in fact, there was no intelligence.
As a former federal prosecutor, my opinion is that declassifying them would not expose any national security information, would not expose any sources and methods. It would expose certain folks at the Obama Justice Department and FBI and their actions taken to conceal material facts from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court.
How involved was John Brennan?
Totally involved. He was totally involved. John Brennan was one of the architects, in my opinion. You look at Brennan, you look at Clapper, you look at them all. But ultimately, the president knew everything. The president knew everything. President Obama and Vice President Biden, they knew everything.
And Comey and Brennan and Clapper, they all were terrible, and they lied to Congress. They spied on my campaign, which is treason. They spied both before and after I won.
So here's the thing, guys, right? So what was interesting is if people were watching independent media during that time, a lot of the progressive YouTube shows, even they didn't buy the Russiagate thing. That's the thing. It was mainly corporate media that was pushing that. Rachel Maddow, she really pushed it. But a lot of even the progressive YouTube shows were saying, yeah, this is not I don't think this is real, you know? But corporate media tried to really push that narrative, anything to help darling Hillary Clinton at that point in time. You also have to remember where Tulsi Gabbard was at that time. Tulsi Gabbard was still in the Democratic Party. She was kind of tapped on the shoulder to be next in line to be the next DNC darling. They loved some Tulsi Gabbard at that time because she kind of checked off all the boxes they were looking for, honey. They loved her then. And then she decided to endorse Bernie Sanders instead of Hillary Clinton. And after that, they were like, bye. They were done with her then. So just keep in mind that at that point in time, Tulsi Gabbard was a part of the same club. Let's continue.
Joining me now is the woman herself, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Director, thanks very much for being here this morning.
Good morning, Maria. Thank you.
What was the most damning thing that you learned after looking through all of these declassified documents?
Maria, the implications of this are frankly nothing short of historic. Over 100 documents that we released on Friday really detail and provide evidence of how this treasonous conspiracy was directed by President Obama just weeks before he was due to leave office, after President Trump had already gotten elected. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an issue that is so serious it should concern every single American because it has to do with the integrity of our democratic republic. What we
Pause. So I'm going to add something to this as well, okay? You know what else is not a Democrat or Republican issue? Those damn Epstein files. That's bipartisan. That's also not a Democrat or Republican issue. They not releasing those. Don't forget about it, folks. I know a lot of people are talking about this whole story right now, but do not let this allow you to forget about those Epstein files. Okay? Thank you.
Saw occur here as the documents we released detailed was that we had a sitting president of the United States and his cabinet and leadership team, quite frankly, who were not happy with the fact that President Trump had won the election, that the American people had chosen Donald J. Trump to be the next president, commander-in-chief of the United States. And so they decided that they would do everything possible to try to undermine his ability to do what voters tasked President Trump to do. So creating this piece of manufactured intelligence that claims that Russia had helped Donald Trump get elected contradicted every other assessment that had been made previously in the months leading up to the election that said exactly the opposite, that Russia had neither the intent nor the capability to try to, quote unquote, hack the United States election for the presidency of the United States. So the effect of what President Obama and his senior national security team did was subvert the will of the American people, undermining our democratic republic, and enacting what would be essentially a years-long coup against President Trump, who was duly elected by the American people.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the thing, folks. Again, when I first heard this story, I was like, yeah, did many of us even buy into the Russiagate thing? I know I didn't. Right? Like I said, a lot of us who were watching independent media or were a part of independent media, we did not buy into that. That was mainly corporate media that was pushing that narrative. So, there's that part of it. The other part about this is just Tulsi, the look on Tulsi's face, she just looks so serious, like this is damning, this is shocking, it's really not. Because I thought that we had all kind of decided that we knew there was corruption that was happening there. And I just didn't understand why they just have this look like, oh my God, it's shocking the information that we discovered. Okay. There were many of us saying back then at that time, Russia had nothing to do with this. Russia doesn't give a damn, was not interested in this information. And there were people who wrote whole thing. I think Matt Taibbi, he wrote about this. He talked about this. Aaron Mate had an investigation about this. Like, this is just, again, so it's like, I felt like this story was brought forward to kind of get people to look this way instead of looking straight on and saying, where are them damn Epstein files? And I say that because if you really think about this, number one, what is the goal of this story? Are they really going to arrest Barack Obama? No. Is Barack Obama going to jail? No. Barack Obama is chilling probably right now on Martha's Vineyard, doesn't give a damn, wearing his damn mom jeans. Barack Obama is protected and he knows that he's protected. You don't think these people, all these people that were in the same club, Obama, the Clintons, Trump was a part of this club with the Clintons. You guys don't think these people don't realize that they're protected?
Now, I want to go back to something Devin Nunes said, which is exactly what you're saying right now. And he said, after all of our investigation, we found that there was no intelligence. There was no intelligence actually indicating that Trump colluded with Russia. And what happened? Because there was a presidential daily briefing that was presented to President Obama every day. And every day it said the same thing. We have no evidence of collusion. We have no evidence that Russia did this with Donald Trump. So what happened? How did they actually get the public to believe, and half the public believed, that actually Trump did collude?
Well, this is the thing, Maria, when you look at the assessments that were made, not just by one element of the intelligence community, but in my role as the Director of National Intelligence, I oversee 18 different intelligence community elements. And in the months leading up to the November 2016 election, the intelligence community agreed that there was no intelligence that reflected that Russia was trying to hack the election in favor of either candidate. The evidence showed, the intelligence showed that, again, Russia did not have either the intent nor the capability to be able to impact the outcome of the United States election. So it was.
So again, didn't Matt Taibbi and Aaron Mate tell us this years ago? Didn't all these people already say all this stuff? What's this really about, Tulsi? What is this really about? And I see people cheering it online. They're like, yeah, they're going after Obama. They're going to get him. No, they're not. They're not going to take down Obama. Let me tell you something. If there is one person who probably knows where the bodies are buried, if there is one person who probably knows a lot of dirty laundry, whether it's about Tulsi, whether it's about Trump, etc., it might be him. Because Obama is that one president that has never gone away. Like, Obama hasn't been president since 2016, but he is still very much involved in the political landscape. He is still the one that comes out to help campaign, to help people win, even in some of the local races, whether it's governor, he gets involved. Whereas all these other presidents, for the most part, have just kind of just like, yeah, I'm retired. Bill Clinton came back from the crypt to help Kamala, and that was a terrible idea. His appearance there in Michigan in front of the Palestinian people, that was just a terrible idea. So Barack Obama probably knows a lot. So you guys really think what? Come on, man. Come on.
It's very striking when we look back again at the documents that I declassified and released that shows there was a shift in early December, the first week of December. Again, another document was produced by the intelligence community, a president's daily brief that was consistent with every other assessment that was done previously leading up to the election. Russia did not, this is after the election now, did not attempt to affect the outcome of the American election. That was never published. Hours before it would have gone into President Obama's President's Daily Brief, it was pulled by a senior level intelligence official saying that they had to pull it because they had received new guidance. The very next day, this meeting was called, a National Security Council meeting, bring together all of the senior leaders of President Obama's cabinet, and the topic that was put forward was a sensitive matter. The tasks that came out of that meeting was coming from President Obama directing the intelligence community, then Obama's ODNI director Clapper, to produce a document, to produce an intelligence assessment that detailed not if, but how Moscow affected the outcome of the election that had already occurred, electing Donald Trump to the presidency. This document that they published in January of 2017 was the foundational groundwork that they continued to reference over and over and over again to enact this years-long coup against President Trump.
Okay, well, Tulsi, honey, since you over at intelligence, how about you show some intelligence with Israel and Epstein? How about you show some of that? Show some of that intelligence instead of coming forward with the story that I think most of us already kind of knew anyway. Who is still sitting around saying, yeah, it was Russia, other than people that only watch corporate media and are like brainwashed and like, who is still sitting around saying those things? Let me know. What? And when this story came out and I heard they were like, oh my God, Tulsi Gabbard is coming forward with a bombshell story. I was like, okay, let's see what this is about. And then she come forward with the Russiagate thing. And I'm like, really? This is the story? Oh my God, how shocking. Gasp. And then you see not too long right after this, they come forward with, we just released the MLK files. Great. No Epstein files though. Because they're protecting their rich friends. Because they're protecting, and I would also add, people that are a part of intelligence. Because if you really want to know, I recommend people read Whitney Webb's books. One Nation Under Blackmail. Read her books. All these high, powerful people that were connected. That's what they're protecting. Now I don't even want to hear it. The same people who told you we got to protect the children. We care about the children. Oh my God, look at what they're doing. Look what's happened to those kids when Biden was president. Now all of a sudden says, nah, there's nothing to see there, folks. There is more than one Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein isn't just one person who had this master plan. There are multiple Jeffrey Epsteins still walking around this earth. And I said it before and I'll say it back then. He wasn't the head of the snake. They don't go after the head of the snake. They don't plan on taking these people down. They not going to prosecute Barack Obama. He ain't going nowhere and he know it. And I saw a lot of people falling for it online. A lot of people falling for it. Again, when we talk about money matters, if you follow the money, you'll understand why you're not getting the information that you want. If you follow the money, you'll understand why you're not getting this information about these Epstein files. Because I'm going to tell you, if I were to make guesses, yeah, we're talking about rich, powerful people, but I'm willing to bet you got some politicians involved as well. On both sides, bipartisan. Think about it that way. And I believe it's probably politicians who are already married. And I also go a step further and I would say, don't be surprised if some of the wives may have been involved too. I don't trust any of these people. Rich people, like these people do some sick, twisted things. And right now, this story that Tulsi Gabbard is like, shocking, damning information coming forward. Barack Obama may be corrupt. It's just a distraction. Let's go to the comments in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Rick, Russiagate is why so many on the left got censored. And now it's Israel. Thank you. What's up, Walter Beasley? Thank you for the super chat. Walter Beasley says, blessings. Thank you. Arcane says Tulsi is trying to set herself up for 2028. Probably. Thank you, Luis. My parents are on my YouTube account, so they get no ads and my subscriptions. My 90-year-old dad said yesterday he watches you and really appreciates your perspective. Keep doing the damn thing. Oh, wow. Well, thanks, Luis. That's nice to know. And thank you, Courtney. No, not mom jeans. Mom jeans. Hey, mom jeans came back in style. Thank you, New York Varsity. When someone says 18 intelligence agencies, I raise an eyebrow. Tulsi should know better. Is she including the U.S. Post Office? LOL. And thank you, Roger. Bill came back to help Governor Hochul. She needed help to win New York. Thank you. Let's get the comment on Rumble. And we'll keep it moving. Hey. Thank you, Goo. Keep in mind, China is Israel's #1 trading partner. So why is the USA and Europe facilitating genocide for a pariah state that made statements to try to jump to the east and probably Zionize BRICS? Quick answer. Money. 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 Who is it? Is that the OJs? Some people got to have it. Yeah. Some people really need it. Isn't that the OJs or something? To bang that thing, baby. Do, almighty dollar. All right, I'll stop. Someone's going to sing who sings that song. Let them sing it. Okie dokie, guys. Quick announcement, and then we will get to the other stories. It is the OJs. Thank you, FM. There it is. All right, quick announcement, ladies and gentlemen. We do have our annual back to school donation that's coming up in August. It's August 16th. This is for our Boston Mutual Aid chapter. You guys know we do mutual aid. This is going to be in Dorchester, Boston Mutual Aid Chapter is hosting our annual back to school donation event at Codman Square Library in Dorchester, August 16th, 12 p.m. Eastern. We will donate school supplies, host games for students, and provide lunch. Please help donate if you can. If you can help, guys, the goal is $2,000. I'm going to put the link in the chat as soon as I find where the share button is. Thank you. Help us out if you can, guys. Really would appreciate that. Thank you so much, fam. Eric, we can move on to part 2 of Tight VNC. People were asking about the mutual aid workshops. That is something else I need to bring back. I did one. I need to get back into that. I've just been so busy filming the documentary. So I am going to bring that back. Just FYI, guys. Based. Okay. If you haven't done so, ladies and gentlemen, smash that like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. And we're moving on. I am doing so good with time. I'm proud of myself tonight. Hey. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. This one hits kind of hard for me, but we got to talk about it. Malcolm Jamal Warner died. And for many of us, we kind of watched Malcolm Jamal Warner grow up on television. Like, we watched him grow up as Theo, and then we watched him evolve to his own show, Malcolm and Eddie, with Eddie Griffin, right? Like, we watched him and all the other Cosby kids grow up. And for many of us, we were shocked to hear that Malcolm Jamal Warner died. He was in his 50s. He's still relatively young. But that was the news that broke. Apparently, he drowned while in Costa Rica. So we lost a good one, and I'll get into the details about that in just a second. But let's get into this clip.
The actor Malcolm Jamal Warner, widely known for starring in the hit TV sitcom The Cosby Show, has died. Police in Costa Rica tell ABC News Warner drowned near a beach along the country's east coast. He was just 54 years old. The Emmy nominee won the hearts of Americans, starring as teenage son Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show from 1984 through 1992.
We'll pause it here because they go into a clip from the show, which we can't show. But I want to say something here, guys. Like, when I was growing up, you know, my parents never pressured me to go to college. But my parents did tell me if I didn't get good grades, I wasn't going to get an allowance. So my motivation there was, you know, I need to do well in school so I can get allowance, right? But it was the Cosby Show that encouraged me to go to college. Like I said, like, my parents never said you have to go to college. Some of my friends' parents told them that, and some of my friends' parents told them what school they had to go to. Right? So, yeah. But my parents didn't do that. But watching The Cosby Show, that was the first time, like, even as a kid, like, seeing a Black family on television where the mother was a lawyer and the father was a doctor, and they had 5 kids and they lived in New York. And we watched, like, the journey that those kids made, whether it was on The Cosby Show or A Different World. We watched Denise go to college on A Different World. And it was almost like I didn't know them personally, and I'm sure you guys didn't either, but it was a parasocial relationship that was established because I could look at them and say, hey, I could be like that someday. Like, I could go to college like Denise. So, like, I was the first one, you know, in my family to graduate from college. And I don't think a lot of people understand that during that time, what that show meant to a lot of Black people and Black families, that the encouragement that it gave us, like, hey, maybe I should consider college. It was positive. And we watched Theo go through so many, you know, ups and downs on the show. And also, he was the only boy. That was the other thing. He was surrounded by sisters, and he was the only boy, and he had his own, you know, struggles. Theo got his ear pierced. We remember those episodes. Like, he tried to hide it from his parents. And Malcolm Jamal Warner was never one of those child actors that you heard about on the news getting into trouble. In fact, I didn't remember that with any of the Cosby kids, to be honest with you. Like, they grew up to be pretty well functioning adults. Like, a lot of child actors have difficulty going into adulthood, right? And still trying to find work as an actor. And we've heard all those horror stories, whether it's from shows like Different Strokes, etc. But not with this one. So for many of us, those were people that we looked up to. I did notice that Denise, Lisa Bonet's character, is not in this. I don't know why. I think they have squashed things. I thought that she had kind of, squashed things with Cosby and the crew. But Denise was also a big one. Let's get into a little bit more about what happened here in Costa Rica. I want to bring this up as well.
Warner recently starred in the Fox medical drama The Resident. He was also a producer, director, poet, and musician. He was married with a daughter, but chose not to publicly disclose their names. ABC News' Matt Rivers is tracking the latest from Mexico City, along with ABC News contributor Roxy Diaz and her Los Angeles bureau. So, Matt, let's start with you. What more do we know about Warner's death? This was a drowning. Anything else?
Yeah, not a ton of detail coming out. Everything that we're getting at this point, as we continue to investigate this story, is coming from the Costa Rican National Police. They're confirming to ABC News that Warner's body was found on Sunday afternoon. They were able to positively identify him. They said he had been on a family vacation on the country's east coast, roughly 3 hours driving or so from the capital of San Jose, in an area, a beach called Cocles Beach, which is near Limon. So that's on the east coast, on the Atlantic side of this country. It is a popular tourist area. Certainly lots of people going in the water there all the time. But what we're hearing from authorities is that there was a high current in the area that day, and they believe that is ultimately what led to his death. Again, his body being discovered Sunday afternoon.
And I want to add here, I have been seeing people online say things like, well, he should have known how to swim. Well, first of all, that high current like that, even if you do know how to swim, you could still drown, right? Like, I don't know if he knew how to swim or not, but I'm just saying, I'm seeing people say that online, and I'm just like, first of all, why are you saying that after someone just died? And two, you can still drown if there is a high current. Fire says strong current in the ocean is no joke. Yeah, exactly. The gall of some people, it's ridiculous.
Roxy, he was absolutely beloved, adored by so many Americans, coming as a shock to all of us, and especially to the entertainment world. How are other celebrities and how's the industry in general reacting to this?
I mean, as you can imagine, we all feel like we lost a family member. Malcolm Jamal Warner was loved by, I wouldn't even say just Americans, by the world. The Cosby Show having a huge impact on raising many of us. His castmate on the show, The Resident, Morris Chestnut, wrote out saying, heartbroken to hear the passing of Malcolm Jamal Warner. Working alongside him on The Resident was an honor. He brought so much depth, warmth, and wisdom to every scene and every conversation. Tracy Ellis Ross also speaking out saying, I love you, Malcolm. First and foremost, you first met you as Theo, just like the rest of the world, and he was her first TV husband. My heart is so sad for this news. What an actor and a friend. You were warm, gentle, present. Magic Johnson also speaking out that he and his wife Cookie are sad to hear about the passing of their dear friend Malcolm Jamal Warner. Just super fans of the hit show Cosby's as well as The Resident. And every time they ran into each other, Malcolm would have fun and deep conversations about basketball, life, business. He will truly be missed. And Beyonce also speaking out, as many others are, just remembering the impact of what he meant to so many of us in our households.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something to talk about. I mean, it just, this isn't someone that was known for controversy or anything. And from what I understand, it seems like Malcolm Jamal Warner was a very private person. You didn't hear him putting his kids out here like that, like some people do, some celebrities do. You didn't see him doing that type of thing. And a lot of people know him for the Cosby Show. But like I said, like in the 90s, he was on a show with Eddie Griffin called Malcolm and Eddie. And I remember that show. There's interesting story about that as well. Malcolm Jamal Warner said this in a recent or not too long ago interview that they were getting close to the 100th episode of Malcolm and Eddie, and the studio decided to cut when they were in the 80s. So apparently, if they would have made it to that 100th episode, that means you're gonna get some more money, right? Like, and also, of course, residuals as well. So the studio came in to cut that short. You know what I'm saying? Like, just sneaky things that are done like that. And I remember that show. I thought it was pretty funny. He was a musician. Malcolm Jamal Warner played the guitar. You guys know that he played the guitar, had his own little band thing going on. He was also a poet, smart dude. Like, the actors that played the Cosby kids, like, they were kids growing up on the show, and they went on to just do so well. And I think there's something to be said for that, right? I think my favorite, I have to show this. This is probably still one of my favorites till this day. It's gotta be this, man. It's gotta be. Can we reminisce? The Gordon Cottrell. The Gordon Cottrell shirts. For people who haven't seen this episode, I gotta tell you, this is, I think, probably my favorite episode. And it's because Theo, he paid like $95, $97 for a shirt. And his dad, so Cliff, was pissed that he spent that much money on a shirt. So he told him to take the shirt back. And Theo said, "But Dad, this is a Gordon Gartrell. This is like, huge." It was like, fancy designer and all that kind of stuff. And so Theo had to take the shirt back to the store. Well, then Denise, who's played by Lisa Bonet, his sister, Denise said, "I can make you that shirt for a lot less. Just give me some of the money that Dad was going to give you, Dad gave you to get a different shirt, and I'll make the shirt for you." So Denise decides to make him a Gordon Gartrell, and this is how the shirt came out. Like, it was hilarious. Like, it's a funny episode, you guys. Notice that the sleeves are not aligned. The pockets down here instead of the chest. The pocket was down at the stomach instead of on his chest. But I think one of my favorite episodes of the Cosby Show, it was hilarious. And he was like, "Denise, this is not Gordon Cottrell. I can't wear this." Like, that type of thing. But just loved it. Loved that episode. Again, like I said, Malcolm Jamal Warner, based dude. And who can forget his friendship with Cockroach? And see, many didn't know this as well, unless, they went on to watch the next show. But the sitcom Martin featured Cockroach from The Cosby Show. And on Martin, he was Cole. See, a lot of people forget that's Cole from the sitcom Martin. But Theo and Cockroach were best buds, man. And it was just so cool. Like, you go back and you watch The Cosby Show and you'll see a lot of people that had guest appearances on there who weren't famous at the time. Like, a lot of people forget this, but Adam Sandler used to be on The Cosby Show. Every now and then, he was also one of Theo's friends. There were a number of people that came on, but they just weren't famous at the time. And Adam Sandler went on to become a crazy-ass Zionist. But that's another story. Something that Malcolm Jamal Warner said, just to give you an idea of who he was as a person, I thought this was important when he was talking about the language in hip hop. Listen to this.
There should be a moratorium on both of those words in hip hop because it's low-lying fruit. It's so easy. Everybody fucking does it to the point that it's corny. Like there are MCs who I love, who I cannot listen to anymore because I love J. Cole, but I had to stop listening to J. Cole because I got tired of hearing nigga and bitch
as much
every 2 sentences because he's proven himself to be such a incredible lyricist
that you think it's just too low hanging fruit for him to use those words?
I feel like there should be a moratorium on both of those words in hip hop because it's low lying fruit. It's so easy. Everybody fucking does it to the point that it's corny. Like there are MCs who I love, who I cannot listen to anymore because I love J. Cole.
So that was how he felt about the language in hip hop, which I think that I can relate to with Malcolm on that one. That's something else I didn't really care for. There's a lot of rap songs I know that we like to dance to and stuff that do use those words, but that was something I had a pet peeve about too. I didn't like people always using that word and stuff. Like, you don't have to use those words to get your point across. And I think that's something that LL Cool J said that his grandmother told him. You don't got to talk that way to get your point across. So just to show you the type of person that he was. And this is the video that everyone is sharing that they said was his last video that he posted before he passed away.
What's good? Yes, I got the flower in my hair. Today's my daughter's birthday. She put the flower there, so I'm rocking it. What? It's a beautiful day here in Atlanta. I just wanted to shout out and just spread some love and some good cheer. And you know, life is out here lifing, right? For me and for everybody else. But just wanted to remind you, as I remind myself, that no matter what's going on, there's always a reason to smile. Like, if you just take a minute to stop and take stock, I guarantee you can find at least one reason to smile. And if for some reason you can't find a reason to smile, then that's probably the best time to be the reason for somebody else to smile. So, find a smile for yourself and be a reason for someone else to smile. That's all I got. Listen to love because it's been a minute. Peace and love, and I'll be back soon.
I know, Angie. Angie said I'm crying. I know. Yeah, that's rough. Malcolm Jamal Warner, man, another good one. Let's get to the comments here in the chat, ladies and gents. Thank you, Kenman. Cosby was a gynecologist on the show. Just saying. Kidman, stop. Why you go there, Kidman? Nikki says it was even watched by viewers in European countries, and it was aspirational, inspiring many Black people outside of the USA. Yeah, it was. Roy said Bill made sure he acted as a surrogate father for Malcolm. Thank you, Golden Sun. Hello from A2 Michigan. Hey. Skylar said, I can't believe Malcolm is gone. It's so sad. We never know when we're going to leave this plane. That's right. And thank you for the super sticker, Truth Above All. Thanks, Nicole. My t-shirt of this pic arrived today. Oh, cool. Oh, you must have got your t-shirt. Oh, okay, cool. Congrats, Nicole. Thank you, New York. My fave was when there was a snake in the house. Theo sold that snake don't climb upstairs. How do they get up trees? They fall off the cliff. Thank you, Roger. Jam it on the one, Sabby. Darius said, yes. Erica Alexander from Living Single. She was also on the Cosby Show. Yeah, Darius remembers. FM said Blair Underwood. Michael B said Tempest's mother was my English teacher. Wow. And Miss Kiwi said Malcolm would speak to everyone online too on IG. I used to chat with him. Just a wonderful, deep, loving brother that will truly be missed. Yeah. That one was tough. Let's get the comment on Rumble. Thank you, Goo. Sabby, singing the theme to The Apprentice hosted by Donald Trump. LOL. Oh, man. Okay. Yeah, I know that's a hard one. So we're going to go to this next one. And this is I'm going to spend most of my time on this story. So get comfortable. Okay. Again, the theme is money matters. And it definitely matters in this next story. Whitney Webb announced recently that she was going to drop a series of articles that would add more information to the Epstein story that would also, in ways, implicate other people, not just the ones that have been mentioned. We covered her story about the connection between Diddy and Epstein through MCA, etc. And now she is mentioning other names that I think you guys may find interesting. Now, Donald Trump is referenced in this as well in a different way, but there are other players that have been involved. Let's go ahead and get into it. This is the latest article from Whitney Webb, investigative series about Jeffrey Epstein. First Friends, how Italy's Donald Trump introduced Naomi Campbell to Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, yes. See how more people are being added to this story? There's Naomi Campbell, there's Flavio, there's Diddy. We'll get into all of it. Whitney is making more connections. So let's just jump forward to the Naomi Campbell part because here we go. We're not going to read the entire article. It is rather long, but there are certain parts that we got to get into. The models and moguls of the Black Book. Naomi Campbell, who was born in Britain to the parents of Jamaican origin, began her modeling career in the mid-'80s at age 15. Prior to that, she appeared in music videos for Bob Marley and Culture Club and in the Pink Floyd film The Wall. Let me go back and check and see if she was in Karma Chameleon. I didn't know she was in Culture Club, videos. Let me go back and see. Was she in Karma Chameleon? That was the one song I liked by Boy George, like Culture Club. Karma Chameleon. Let me go back and see, okay? She first modeled for Lexi Wexner's own Victoria's Secret in 1996, a year after the lingerie brand began its own very popular televised fashion shows. Those shows, until they were suspended in the wake of Epstein's scandal in 2019, attracted more viewers than any of the fashion shows combined. So we're going into the Victoria's Secret. We all know that Leslie Wexner, a longtime friend of Jeffrey Epstein, also, from what I understand, gave Epstein money as well. Goes on to say here that Ed Resnick, who was the chief marketing operator of L Brands, Victoria's Secret parent company, who was later accused of inappropriate behavior towards models, along with some of the brand's top modeling agent, including Campbell, can now be found in an infamous contact book of Leslie Wexner's longtime fixer and now deceased sex trafficker, Jeffrey Epstein. Let's go on and talk about this a little bit here. Campbell, when she was 17, she worked for Elite. After Elite bought out the agency and had first signed her in 1987. Goes on to say, we're going to jump forward a little bit. Elite and Campbell parted ways in 1993, with Casablancas accusing her of being crazy, irrational, and uncontrollable and mistreating staff. Campbell has been accused of a series of assaults and for mistreating staff on several occasions over the past couple of decades. So that was Naomi Campbell there when she was working for Victoria's Secret. Jeffrey Epstein attempted, but ultimately failed, to acquire Elite's American branch in the early 2000s. However, another close associate of Epstein, model turned businesswoman Nicole Junkerman, was also managed by Elite in 1995. And this may be how she first became acquainted with Epstein sometime between the late 1990s and early 2000s. As will be noted later, this is also roughly the same time frame in which Campbell claims to have first met Epstein. Junkerman, in 2002, allegedly assisted Epstein in sexually blackmailing 2 U.S. senators, the identities of which still remain unknown, at a Wexner-owned residence in the UK, suggesting that some of the relationships Epstein cultivated with certain models was related to sexual blackmail efforts. I wonder who those 2 U.S. senators are. What I tell you, politicians. Epstein began to focus heavily on the modeling industry in 1995. That was after he teamed up with Wexner. Some evidence, however, suggests that Epstein had become very involved with recruiting models for Victoria's Secret as early as 1993. That year, Epstein first teamed up with Jean-Luc Brunel, a controversial model agency mogul from France, who, much like Epstein, died suspiciously in prison in 2022 while awaiting charges related to the Epstein scandal. Coincidence? Brunel is believed to have played a major role in Epstein's sex trafficking enterprise. Had brought Epstein into close connections with Faith Cates of Next Models, one of the more respected agencies in the industry, who was a former business partner of Brunel's. So what you see happening here, we're going to jump forward a little bit, is that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in the modeling industry, right? So it seems like he kind of had his hands in different areas here. Some in the industry even referred to Epstein as one of the most important people in modeling since the late 1990s. His connection with modeling world persisted up until his first arrest in 2007, particularly with his ties with Jean-Luc Brunel. So listen to this part. This is interesting. With Brunel, an apartment complex owned by a company run by Epstein's brother, Mark, was said to have housed underage and just of age girls, mainly from Eastern Europe and South America. Some, and like many of the girls and young women who had their travel documents confiscated by Epstein's associates and were coerced into having sex with powerful men. One of the models that flew on Epstein's plane and traveled to his island, Ruslana, a model for Vera Wang, DKNY, and others, jumped to her death from the 9th floor apartment roughly 2 years after her trip with Epstein. The reason remains unknown. Epstein's Black Book of Contacts confirms he certainly did have influence within the modeling industry. Okay, so let's jump forward a little bit here. We need to get to this part right here. In the Black Book, we're talking about Rodriguez. Rodriguez, I want to make sure I tell you him is right here. Alfred Rodriguez, that is Epstein's butler, was Epstein's butler. So let's talk about what Whitney says with this book. In the Black Book, Rodriguez had circled Briatore's name along with the names of Leslie, Abigail Wexner, Jean-Luc Brunel, Ghislaine Maxwell, Sarah Kellen, Peter Soros, who's the nephew of infamous financier George Soros, Glenn and Eva Dubin, Ehud Barak, Bill Richardson, who was the former Democratic governor of New Mexico, Alan Dershowitz, and President Donald Trump. In the case of Trump, as well as other circled names, it is unknown why specifically Rodriguez singled them out. Were some of the names once clients of Epstein's sex ring, which were material witnesses, enablers, or direct accomplices? So let's take a look at that picture here. And you'll see here's Flavio Briatore. We're going to get to him in a second. Briatore and Donald Trump. So this is what she's talking about here. Now let's jump forward to Flavio, not to be confused with Fabio. Oh, who was the guy? That guy with the long hair is like, I can't believe it's not butter. I forget his name. You guys know what I'm talking about. So let's get to Flavio. This is who Whitney says is the Trump of Italy. So he had a failed restaurant venture. He went on to become the assistant to a local financier, Attilio Dutto. Goes on here. He makes connections with the banks. Let's go forward a little bit more. During the early 1990s, another member of P2, former Italian Prime Minister Silvio, would become one of Flavio's long-standing and closest friends. Interesting. Silvio, longtime holding company, Fininvest, is alleged to have made annual payments of 200 million lire to the Sicilian mafia for an unspecified period after the company was founded in 1975. He was later accused by multiple parties of continuing involvement with organized crime, often in the pursuit of business favors throughout the 80s and the 90s. So here we go here. So Flavio was connected to this gentleman here who was connected to organized crime. Now we're getting organized crime back in the picture. Remember, Whitney talked about this a little bit in the Diddy Epstein article and MCA records. Now we are getting into the organized crime bit with the modeling industry and some of these financiers. So let's continue to go on here. Their relationship blossomed. It is suggestive that Flavio's earlier connection to Duto helped connect him into a world where the mafia and other powerful interests mixed in the shadows. So everybody see this? Check this part out. Author Paul Williams, who wrote the book on the infamous Operation Gladio, wrote that Duto's predecessor, Michelle Sindona, had been a linchpin between organized crime networks, particularly those involving the National Crime Syndicate, the CIA, and the Vatican, which eventually resulted in the toppling of governments, wholesale slaughter, and financial devastation in post-war Europe. Interesting. Several members of P2 were implicated in the conspiracy, including employees and members of the Agnelli family. The Agnellis, years later, would later become financially entangled with Jeffrey Epstein. This is very interesting. Again, we're going to jump forth. I'm trying to give you just a summary of this of sorts, because I don't want to confuse you, and I can put the link there so you can read the entire article yourself as well. Come over here. So Duto was later murdered. After Duto's murder, Flavio later reappeared in Milan working for Finanziaria General Italia at the Milan Stock Exchange. While there, he became connected to the aristocratic Caproni dynasty, who had built their fortunes by dominating Italy's aeronautical industry for many decades. In particular, Flavio became close to Count Accio Caprioni, who was accused and tried for financial crimes against banks and other companies in the early 1980s. So again, more corruption, more connection to crime. We're still on Flavio here. Let's jump forward a little bit because it gets back to Naomi Campbell. So this part right here, notably, Epstein's main patron and another circled name in his black book, Leslie Wexner, also had ties to the Genovese crime family, according to heavily suppressed documents originally authored by Ohio law enforcement. Now, this is important because Leslie was the owner, the founder of Victoria's Secret. I told you earlier that him and Jeffrey Epstein, already had a relationship. It was also, alleged that he gave Epstein money to start ventures, etc. Some had argued whether that relationship was more than just a business or friend relationship, and rather if it was romantic or not, don't know. But that gentleman who owned Victoria's Secret, according to Whitney Webb's article, he had connections with the Genovese crime family. So now we're seeing another person that was connected to Jeffrey Epstein, Flavio, and now Leslie, who owned Victoria's Secret, who was also connected to crime family. Let's continue on. Let's go on here. So back to that book, The Genovese Crime Family. Those documents resulted from the police investigation into the mob-style murder of Wexner's lawyer, Arthur Shapiro, who was due to testify to the IRS shortly after he was killed. Shortly thereafter, Wexner hired Jeffrey Epstein to sort out his tangled finances. And in this photo here, you will see Luciano Benetton, Alessandro Benetton, Flavio, and Bernie Esclone. Let's go on a little bit more here because I want to get back to the part about Naomi Campbell. So long story short, Flavio continues to connect himself to other crime people. Also during the same period, Flavio was involved in another scandal, one that involved an alleged effort to sell atomic bombs to Libya's Gaddafi. This attempt to make Libya a nuclear power had notably involved an infamous Saudi family tied to the Bank of Credit and Commerce International scandal and money laundering for drug cartels. So we're talking about big people here, guys. Like this is why I keep telling you they're not going to release these files. It's not just, oh, maybe it's just a couple billionaires here and there. Maybe it's some politicians. No, we're talking about powerful people in the world. We're talking about connections to organized crime. This is why you not getting this information. Let's go on. T who said Flavio was Heidi Klum's baby daddy. Ooh, Heidi. Yes, Darius is global. That's why. That's a big part of it. Let's fast forward a little bit here. And let's jump back to the Naomi Campbell part. Because like I said, like you guys can read this on your own. I'll put this in here. But long story short, Flavio connected to organized crime, a lot of corruption, even financial corruption that you can talk about there as well. Let me fast forward. Okie dokie. Sorry, guys, it's a long article. I just want to make sure. All right. Another thing that Flavio did, his success at Formula One. Right? So he was also involved in the world of racing. A race fixing scandal in 2008 that favored Flavio's then star driver Fernando Alonso at the Singapore Grand Fix resulted in Flavio's supposed lifetime ban from the sport. So this guy was everywhere. Flavio was not just, an alleged, financier. He did not just entrench himself into finance, but also he was in sports, organized crime. He had his hand in all of these different activities. So think about all the people he knew. Now, in this particular photo here, it says Flavio with Michael Schumacher. This is Michael Schumacher on the right. You see how he was also involved in Formula One? Okay, so let's go back on here. Again, trying to jump forward. The Flavio-Trump relationship. Flavio and Donald Trump first met in the 1980s. Flavio has declined to give an exact date. It says the introduction to Trump was allegedly related to the fact that the two men at the time were trying to start their careers after the stock market crash with the Black Monday in 1987. Interesting. So that's how they met. Now it goes here to say, according to the interview, per Motorsport, it is not surprising that their paths cross. The scene of playboys who wanted to get rich quickly was manageable even in New York at the time. You knew each other. The two other New York-based playboys closest to Trump during this time were Jeffrey Epstein and Tom Barack of Colony Capital, who still remains close ties to Trump, now serving as U.S. ambassador to Turkey and also to Flavio. At the time, Epstein was just beginning to work with Leslie Wexner and had spent much of the early 1980s hiding and finding stolen money for powerful people. It seems likely that Flavio's first met Epstein either via Trump, who broke ties with Epstein decades later over competing efforts to purchase a Florida mansion, or Barack, who is also listed in Epstein's Black Book. That's Tony Barack, not Barack Obama, just FYI for people who are wondering. However, unlike the listings for Flavio and Trump in that book, Tony Barack's name was not circled by Epstein's former butler, Alfredo Rodriguez. Tellingly, Flavio has, to this date, never been asked about his Epstein relationship, despite granting numerous interviews since Epstein's 2019 arrest and death. Interesting. Let's go on here. Flavio stated that he grew even closer to Trump after officiating a meeting between the real estate mogul and Flavio's then boss, Luciano Benetton. The meeting, which occurred sometime between 1991 and 1992, occurred at the Plaza Hotel in New York, the site of Victoria's Secret's annual fashion show. Jumping forward here, Trump's mentor and lawyer, Roy Cohn, an organized crime associate, had been intimately involved in those blackmail efforts, and Trump, after he bought the Plaza, was accused of hosting parties in the Plaza Hotel suites where young women and girls were introduced to older, richer men, in which the women were allegedly exploited and illegal drugs were widely available. Around this time, Trump had also taken a controlling interest in Resorts International, an infamous mob-linked CIA front company that had formerly been known as the Mary Carter Paint Company. Flavio claims to have introduced Benetton to Trump because I was sure it was possible to do something together. It is unclear what, if any, agreement Benetton and Trump may have reached during or after the meeting. However, Flavio claimed that after arranging this meeting, Trump offered him a job. Flavio elaborated that he had nearly turned down an offer from Benetton to deepen his involvement in the family's F1 racing team because of the offer from Trump. Now, in that same interview, Flavio also specified that the offer had been related to the commercial side of Trump's new casino in Atlantic City. Notably, Trump's decision to acquire control over the mob and intelligence-linked Resorts International had largely been motivated by his efforts to develop Resorts' casino interests in Atlantic City, namely the Taj Mahal, which officially opened in 1990. A few years later, Trump ran into major financial trouble and was bailed out by the Rothschild banking interests. Let me pause here for a second and explain something to everybody. I think what people have to realize, and for older New Yorkers, they'll know what I'm talking about. Especially back in the 70s, and I would probably also say early 80s, there was a lot of mob influence in business in New York, and probably still some of that. But it from what I understand and from what I've read before, it wasn't uncommon for some of these, multimillionaire, successful businessmen to have some type of connection to organized crime. And I want to give you an example, right? Like, you want to buy a building, but they don't want to sell it to you. Okay, so you got the money, but they don't want to let it go. What would you do? If you are a ruthless businessman, you would use your connections that you have with organized crime, get them to rough some people up to get them to sell you that building. I think it was more common than people realize. I really do. Now, that's not to excuse Donald Trump, but what I'm saying that to point out something important. Roy Cohn is someone that was close to Donald Trump, who was connected to organized crime. And Roy Cohn has gotten Donald Trump out of jams before in the past. So put the 2 and 2 together. Darius said it's still a thing. Yeah, like it, you know what I'm saying? So let's continue on a little bit more. Let's go down here. This is where we get into The Apprentice a little bit. The two never ended up working directly together on any casino-related venture, and they eventually did collaborate on The Apprentice. So Flavio was with The Apprentice as well. It also goes on to say here, let's jump forward. Flavio has also been very supportive of Trump's political career and has characterized Trump as a political moderate. During the 2016 election, Flavio had heralded his longtime friend as an unparalleled talent that regular Americans can identify with more than career politicians. So he supported Trump politically as well. Now, let's jump to Naomi Campbell again. Naomi Campbell is the woman who connects Epstein and Diddy. This part is really interesting. Here we go. Photos from the occasion where Naomi Campbell claims to have first met Epstein. Her 31st birthday party hosted by Flavio's yacht. Now this shows Naomi and Epstein associates in the same photograph. Those photographs are now rather infamous as they also showed Epstein's most prominent accuser, an underage Virginia Giuffre. Let's look at these pictures real quick. So there's Virginia Giuffre right there with, that's Prince Andrew. There's Ghislaine Maxwell. Look at the second picture. There's Ghislaine Maxwell. There's Naomi Campbell over here. I hope you guys can follow my cursor so you can see it. And then in this picture over here on the right, there's Virginia Giuffre. And then here's Virginia Giuffre right here. And there's Naomi Campbell right down here in the bottom right-hand corner. And what it says under this picture, it shows that this compilation of photos was produced by the Daily Mail. It shows Naomi Campbell, Flavio, Ghislaine, and then underage Virginia Roberts. So again, Virginia Roberts, later Virginia Giuffre. Now, let me make something very clear here. There's Flavio. Now, you asked me answer this question. Why would an underage girl be at these parties hanging out with these old ass people? Think about it. What the hell do they have in common with a teenage girl? Now, we continue on here. In addition, Naomi Campbell also flew on Epstein's private jet 5 times. Now, those flights take place between 2001 and 2003. One of the flights saw her travel with former President Bill Clinton. Highlights. One of the flights saw Naomi Campbell travel with Bill Clinton. So, yeah, man. Why would a married man be traveling on a private jet with supermodel without the wifey? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Let's continue on. 2 of the flights originated from the U.S. Virgin Islands, where Flavio had major long-standing connections and where Epstein's infamous island was located. Naomi Campbell has not publicly commented on the flights or if she ever visited Epstein's USVI island residence. However, she has said that she ran in the same circles as Epstein, but has insisted that the two weren't close. You know, I love this, right? This is the phrase you just love to hear. Oh, we ran in the same circles, but we weren't really close. But you flying on his private jet? Continuing on. Check this out. In addition, some of the flights that Naomi took on Epstein's plane went to Brazil, a place where Campbell has said she would go out on the street and recruit teen girls for the modeling industry. Whitney, drop the damn beats. Whitney Webb did it with this thing, man. Everybody connecting the dots? So it just so happens that Naomi Campbell was on Jeffrey Epstein's private jet flying to Brazil, which is the same country she would go to recruit girls, teenage girls, for the modeling industry. But y'all ain't close. Okay. Here it goes here. The Miami Herald reported in 2018 that one lawsuit against Epstein claimed that he used an international modeling agency to recruit girls as young as 13 from Europe, Ecuador, and Brazil. It is unknown if Campbell had played a role in those efforts while traveling to Brazil on Epstein's aircraft. However, she was romantically linked to Flavio when most of the flights took place. And Flavio is one of the names that is circled in Epstein's Black Book. 1 second. Okay. Now, the other connection. In addition, Campbell was accused of involvement in the sex trafficking scandal where her former boyfriend and longtime friend, the rapper Diddy, who recently stood trial for crimes similar to those reportedly committed by Epstein. One allegation claims that Campbell was used by Diddy as a lure for his victims. If true, those allegations may offer cause to re-examine her flights on Epstein's infamous jet. Furthermore, Naomi Campbell was also accused by Epstein victims of being aware of his sex trafficking operation, but doing nothing to stop it. Indeed, while Campbell has claimed to have known nothing of Epstein's crimes and to support his victims, Virginia Giuffre tweeted at Naomi Campbell after his 2019 death, accusing her of knowing what was happening. You saw me at your parties. You saw me at Epstein's homes. You saw me on the plane. You saw me get my hair cut. You saw me on the streets. You watched me be abused. You saw me. Virginia Giuffre wrote in early 2020. And it makes you wonder, Naomi Campbell entering the modeling industry at such a young age herself, it makes me wonder if something similar happened to her. Now, that is not to excuse anything if she was involved with this, but it makes me wonder if she was also treated this way, if she was groomed, and then she started doing the grooming as well. We got some more here, folks. In another tweet, Virginia Giuffre said that there is no way in hell that she, Naomi Campbell, didn't know what was happening in front of her own eyes. They were all aware of Epstein and Maxwell's op, didn't go at sick to hide it either. Notably, Naomi Campbell was also mentioned in the testimony of Epstein accuser Johanna Solberg. Campbell dated Flavio in 1998, and the relationship ended in 2002. Some reports characterize their relationships as on and off. During the same period, Campbell was said to have also been dating rapper Diddy, with that relationship allegedly taking place in the year 2001. Now, shortly after Diddy ended his relationship with Jennifer Lopez. That same year, in its October issue, the British edition of Vogue featured Diddy and Campbell on its cover with the headline, Naomi and Puff, the ultimate power duo. Some reports state they dated in 2002. Photographs also show Flavio partying with Diddy in the early and mid 2000s. When I tell you all these people roll together, this is what I'm talking about. One interview that Naomi Campbell gave The Guardian in 2006 reported that Naomi Campbell has always been attracted to older men, mentor figures. The article added that sometimes they have been boyfriends, sometimes she's adopted them immediately as her dad. With respect to those claims, Naomi was quoted as saying, I've got my dad, Chris Blackwell, my dad, Quincy Jones, I've got Flavio, and I've got Mr. Nelson Mandela, my grandfather. She stated that she looks for father figures as boyfriends. Campbell later stated of Flavio that he was her boyfriend, but had since become her mentor. Shortly after his split from Naomi Campbell, Flavio began dating supermodel Heidi Klum. Klum had been previously associated with Ghislaine Maxwell and Prince Andrew, another known associate of Epstein. Maxwell was also photographed with Donald Trump and his then girlfriend and later wife Melania at the same event. Melania had recently begun dating Trump, and Maxwell later claimed to have introduced them. So you guys see this? Ghislaine Maxwell says that she introduced Melania to Donald Trump. So people, this is what I was trying to tell you guys. Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein is closer than he's trying to make it seem. Let's continue on here as well. Heidi Klum, like Naomi Campbell, was alleged by at least one Epstein accuser to have flown on Epstein's plane. However, Heidi Klum denied the allegations. Isn't Heidi Klum married to Seal? Isn't she married to Seal? Kissed by a Rose, man? Interesting. Going on a little bit more here, Flavio's relationship with Klum was publicly announced in early 2003 and ended in 2004. Now, despite the short nature of their relationship, it provided plenty of fodder for tabloids, particularly as the couple split shortly after Klum announced her pregnancy, and the two argued publicly about where the child should be born. Let's go on here. Yeah, singer Seal. I forgot about. Yeah, she was with Kissed by a Rose, Seal. Kissed by a rose on a grave. Moving forward, Campbell's long-term relationship with Flavio also deserves a quick mention. Campbell began dating billionaire Dorinan in 2008, and the two split in 2013 after Dorinan was photographed vacationing with another woman and embracing another model that he had met through Naomi Campbell. Now, Dorinan is a billionaire of Russia origin. He made his money largely through his close-knit relationship with commodity trader and Mossad asset Mark Rich. Rich, a longtime fugitive from the U.S. authorities with a very close tie to Israeli intelligence, was also close to prominent figures in the mega group, namely Michael Steinhardt, who alongside former Israeli Prime Minister Barak allegedly helped pressure former President Bill Clinton to controversially pardon Rich right before he left office. Rich also had controversial ties to Bruce Rappaport, a shipping magnate and banker tied to U.S. and Israeli intelligence, as well as the criminal bank BCCI, which, in addition to banking drug cartels, intelligence agencies, and financial criminals, also ran a sex trafficking operation where minors were abused at the hands of the bank's VIPs. Again, there are multiple Jeffrey Epsteins. Now, they all just happen to be friends, but they weren't close. But they're on each other's like jets multiple times. And now, Dorinan began his career working for Mark Rich in Switzerland before founding the Capital Group in Moscow in 1991. Capital Group was originally a commodities trading firm that later turned into a real estate investment company and allegedly engaged in extensive commodity trading with Rich in its early days. Let's jump forward to Glencore right here because this part is important. Lost my place here. 1 second. One article published by Business Insider referred to Dorinan as one of the people Rich had chosen to mentor. Dorinan has since divested from Capital Group. Dorinan's subsequent main corporate vehicle, luxury hotel manager Aman, came under fire for firing Charles McGonigal as its head of security. McGonigal, a former FBI agent, was arrested while working for Aman for taking secret payments from Oleg Deripaska. Deripaska, one of Russia's richest men, started like Dorinan as a commodity trader, later merging his aluminum mining interests with Mark Rich's Glencore. The Rothschild family, both close ties to both Deripaska and Glencore, highlighting this one. This is, I think, the second or third time we have mentioned the Rothschild family in this article. And finally, who is pulling the strings? The article exploring the ties between Flavio, Naomi Campbell, Trump, and Epstein does not intend to imply that Flavio-Trump relationship alone has influenced the current administration's failure to release the bulk of the so-called Epstein files. Instead, the connections between these individuals reveals that, as Naomi Campbell herself once noted, they all swam in the same corrupt circles. They all swam in the same corrupt circles. But you don't know anything, right? Like you're all in these same corrupt circles, but like, I don't know anything about that. And as they share significant ties to people and entities linked to organized crime, corruption across various industries, and sex trafficking. The intricacy of these circles will only become more apparent in subsequent entries in this series. So again, this is just the beginning of she's doing more entries into the series. Whitney Webb is. Epstein himself was the management, not the owner. Epstein himself was the management, not the owner. He was not the owner of the criminal enterprises that have now made him infamous. The tight-knit network of oligarchs that enabled Epstein are transnational, as their influence spans several countries. They work to manipulate global affairs, global finance, while staying out of the limelight themselves, with more public-facing financiers, moguls, and politicians serving as their middlemen. This is what I was talking about. The head of the snake is not seen. The head of the snake is not the one that is being brought to trial. They stay in the shadows. They don't put themselves out there like that. They got people, they got soldiers doing their work. So if Epstein was the manager, just remember that there were other Epsteins out there, and still are other Epsteins out there doing that work. Now, this part here as well, these oligarchs are the truly unaccountable ones, and their reoccurring presence in the circles around Epstein, Trump, and some of their longtime mutual associates appear to be the real reason for the mismanagement of the Epstein file release. There you go. Because then you got to explain how you in all these corrupt circles with these people, but you know nothing about nothing. However, at least one figure in the Trump administration, aside from Trump himself, may stand to benefit from the administration's failure to release the lion's share of the Epstein-related documents in the government's hands. As will be detailed in the second article in this series, a close friend of Donald Trump and Flavio currently plays an outside yet quiet role in the Trump administration foreign policy, in addition to having unsettling yet largely unknown ties to the Epstein scandal. I can't wait for that next article. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we got to give Whitney Webb a round of applause. This is just the first step in the series. Another one is coming. We need to find out who this person is in this Trump administration that is also a part of this as well, that has not been mentioned. Drop it. We're dropping the motherfucking beat. We're dropping the motherfucking beat. We're dropping the beat for Whitney, guys. Drop the beat. Let's go. Let's go. Dance with me. Dance with me. Drop the beat. In the street. that beat is for Whitney, obviously not for these crimes. She is doing the damn thing. We connecting the dots tonight because Eric knows what's up. Because you see, there are two sets of interests. Thank you so much, Eric. Eric wrote this Substack earlier today. This is the chart I keep telling you about. Feudalism then and now. Medieval feudalism versus corporate feudalism. If you look over here today, corporate feudalism, the billionaires. Eric changed this to billionaires. Good job, Eric. Billionaires at the top. You have big bankers. That's JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs. Corporate elite is next. That's Fortune 500 multinationals. Elected officials are right here in the middle. They're not even at the top of the freaking pyramid. And this is what we've been trying to tell people, at least over on this show. Then you have top bureaucrats, commissioners, secretaries, judges, top professionals, doctors, entertainers, and clergy. And everybody else is at the motherfucking bottom. There are two sets of interests, those at the top 0.1% and those of the 99%. The top 0.1% is determined to increase its wealth and power more and more, regardless of the costs that fall on everyone else. They use their enormous resources to corrupt the government and economic system to work in their favor. They will literally kill us all for the sake of more profitable quarter. The interests of the 99% are vastly different. Equality, justice for all, sustainability, transparency, peace. Recognizing how these interests are at odds and how the billionaire class is working against us is key to understanding how the world really operates. The controversy around the Epstein files is a good example. The billionaire class and their servants in government are deeply implicated in the crimes that occurred, so it's in their interest to keep it all under wraps. It doesn't matter whether they are affiliated with the Democratic or the Republican Party, they serve the same interests, and it's not the interest of the 99%. In the updated feudalism then and now graphic, it's the billionaires at the top, the elected officials in the middle, and everyone else, the 99% at the bottom, getting crushed. So what do we do about it? As with all things in politics, an MCDS analysis brings clarity. Money corruption demands solutions. Billionaires with too much money to spend are the reason Epstein's businesses existed. C, it was allowed to happen and stay hidden because our government is deeply corrupt. D, it is crucial that we have a clear demand. Fix big money in politics and government. Nothing really gets better until we do this. And S, the demand leads to solutions, and you can see 11 demands for that. Eric, you want to share the link for 11 demands in the chat. This is imperative that people really understand this. And this is why I continue to say, you can elect all these different candidates for office as you want. That's fine. But they're not the people with the power. The people with the power are the billionaires, the oligarchs, the people who are really running all this shiz. As you just saw in Whitney Webb's article, this is global. This isn't something that just happened on the Virgin Islands. So you got a global enterprise mixed with celebrities and politicians and organized crime. And that is why those politicians don't want to release the Epstein files. Let's get to some of the comments here in the chat. Lady and gentlemen. Hello. Okay. Thank you, Sparky. Thank you, Sparky says, great work, Sabby. Thank you. Thank you, Marvin. Have Ryan Dawson on Epstein, Civil War, JFK, and Zio expert. I'll look into that. Thank you, Sparky. Someone told me rich Arabs paid to sleep with Naomi Campbell as if there was nothing wrong with it a long time ago. I can't remember who or where. Maybe I was hanging around the wrong people. Maybe. Thank you, Brad. Once you owe the Rothschilds, they own ya, chump. Thanks, Kinman. Is Dr. Shiva on the Epstein? Stop it, Kenman. Stop. Thanks, Christian. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps, they say. Donald Trump is a welfare queen. He's cold, corrupt, and compromised. He's laser focused on getting richer. Thanks, New York Varsity. As juicy as this is, Whitney has not even scratched the surface. No, not yet. No, she said this is a series of articles. Thank you, Brad. Billionaires are known to us. They are not the top. That's a good point there, Brad. Because they're known to us. That's a good point. Okie dokie. Let's get the comments on Rockfin. And then we can skedoodle. Thank you, Roger. MJW with 4 months older than me. My niece was 3 months older than Keisha Knight Pulliam. So when we would watch, I saw them in us and us in them. As a tribute to my brother, I'm going to go buy a Gordon Gartrell while having my niece soon baby from that Ray Charles song that was the most famous episode. Oh, yeah! When they were singing the Ray Charles song on the stairs. That was a good one. But me to feel you got me. Get it, baby, got me. Sorry. Thank you for this one as well. Me and Malcom came up under 80s hip hop. Y'all might not remember when he was in that Houdini video, Funky Beat and Special Ed video he directed. It was Bill Cosby that led the way for Black people to go to college, but at the cost of him playing down blue collar jobs, which he alluded to in an interview on the show, Like It Is with Gil Noble, that he said without saying those jobs were for dummies. Yeah. Hey, I'll say this. Some of the blue collar jobs pay more than the white collar jobs. A lot of people don't talk about that sometimes. Or I should talk about that sometime on the show, do a comparison. Thank you, Dave. Is Glencore the mining company? Ooh, I don't know. Eric, can you check that real quick about Glencore? And thank you, Roger. Never think we can never break up this network and put people in prison. We did it before with the mob, although at the cost of unions being weakened by losing their mob muscle. Yeah, that's true. However, once we removed the mob, then it was the corporate mafia who stepped in to fill its place. Whether we need new laws or enforce what we have, regardless, we can make this happen like we did once before. It's a good point. And thank you, R. Dean, for the Rumble rant. Thanks for all you do. Well, you are welcome. And thank you, RB Ham. What's up, RB? Right now in Ukraine, there is a mass protest against Zelensky and his cronies. They're demanding a peace treaty and new elections. Western media blackout. Look into it. This is huge. Okay, I'll have to touch on that probably on Thursday. I wonder if I can get see who I can get to come on Thursday to talk about that. Mark Sloboda would be good, but Mark Sloboda is he's in Russia. And I mean, hell, it would be like 1 o'clock in the morning for him. Yeah, he wouldn't be able to do it in the evening. I had to record something with him. Sorry, talking to myself. Oh, we got the Glencore thing. Yeah, here we go. Glencore is an Anglo-Swiss multinational commodity trading and mining company. Yeah, you were right, Dave. There you go. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Thank you, John. John, Sabby is Green Party controlled opposition. They keep running Stein. I voted Green, by the way. So is Jill Stein running again? I didn't hear she was running again. I don't think she is. So Jill Stein wasn't running in 2024. Cornel West was running as the Green Party candidate. But then Cornel West decided to leave the Green Party and run as an independent. So they still had to run someone. In order for them to keep and maintain the ballot access, they got to run somebody. So that's why Jill stepped in. So everybody just keep that in mind. She was not the candidate. The candidate was Dr. Cornel West. So that's how she ended up stepping in. I don't foresee her running again in the future, unless there's something I missed. But I don't foresee that happening in the future. I don't think it's controlled opposition. I do think and I've had this conversation on the show before. I do think there are some people that are part of the party that don't really want to fight. Like, I feel like Howie Hawkins, for example, when Howie Hawkins came on RBN and he talked to Nick, he was just like, well, in the end, you got to vote for the Democrats. Yeah, it's just like, why are you a part of the Green Party? You know what I mean? So I think that's a big part of the problem. And that is it, guys. That is it. Oh, thank you, Freddie. Thank you, Freddie Monroe. It's the trillionaires with their billionaire managers running the world into the ground. That part right there. Man. Interesting. That is it for me tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Join me live Thursday evening. And Kit! Howie reminds me of the chicken lawyer from Futurama. Stop. Oh my God. Oof. All right. I'm out of here, folks. You know how we do this. Have a good night. Keep up the fight. And drop the beat.